I had no preconceived ideas of what I was going to do this evening. It was, you've got to get out with your camera, you've got to make a video for next week, you've also got to visit one of the cottages to drop off something that you forgot to drop off earlier. So I thought, well, why not combine the dropping off of stuff, simply park up at the cottage, which, if I turn this way, is 200 yards up that ramp, available for holidays throughout the year. So I thought, well, I've got no idea what I'm going to do. Why not just walk around the area that the cottage is in and get some shots from there, because this really isn't something I do very often. And I walked out onto the beach and I saw this nice reflection here. When I first kind of clapped eyes on it, I was looking through the camera, the phone camera, and it was a lot kind of bluer than it appears naturally to me. Obviously white balance or something. And I thought, actually, that's a really nice shot. So I've set the white balance so it's nice and blue. I've got, as you see, on a tripod there, and I just shot it. I was toying with the idea of putting an ND filter on to get a longer exposure, but I think if we look over here, that's quite a way in the distance in terms of the shot, and I don't think that it's going to make any real difference to it if I kind of flatten it out or not. Might take some of the dynamics away from it. So there we go, first shot on the beach, 200 yards from one of our holiday cottages. Can't be bad. There's an ulterior motive, I suppose, to shooting what I'm shooting here, because I'm a member of a social group that does photo walks in Norwich called Shutterbugs, and one of the things they posted recently was a competition of sorts, a kind of challenge. That's the better word, challenge. That's the way they'd word it, challenge, to capture some reflections, and part of the rules were you must capture the reflections during the month of May, and specifically for this challenge. And well, I mean, they're not going to bother too much that I'm also featuring them on here. It's up here, you see. It's in the mind. I probably wouldn't have shot it had I not been set the challenge of shooting a reflection. If I whiz us around, I think this one here is quite nice as well. Absolutely simplistic shots. Lights changing as again here. I've handheld the shot that I've got because I've got to get low. The reason I want to get low is because you can see where is it? There. Spatial awareness is awful. Where is it? There. There. That gap. That gap there. I want to close that. So the only way I can do that is to get really low and get the reflection down there, which is what I've done. And I just didn't fancy setting the tripod up down that low in order to do it, so I've handheld it. I think it's all right. One of the things that will help you an awful lot in photography is to treat these trips out as exercise. Exercise, for the body, for the mind, and for your skill as well. If you were to give yourself a challenge, as the group that I mentioned earlier, Shutterbugs, has set a challenge, then you can go out with a very specific aim and go looking for something rather than just going out and meandering around hoping something will crop up. The very idea that you have a challenge gives you a goal. It gives your mind's eye, something to search for, and that's absolutely crucial, because otherwise you just kind of, is this a good shot? Is that a shot? I don't know. But if you start going out looking for things, you'll start to see them. It's like buying a different car. Yeah, you suddenly sit behind the wheel of a new car, whether it's new to you or second hand or new, and all of a sudden, having never necessarily seen all of these other cars of the same type around, all of a sudden you see them everywhere. They were always there, of course, you just weren't noticing them because you didn't have a particular interest in it. Think about that. Well, this pool goes right the way along the beach, crosses a number of groins, and the one in front of me, just there now, is particularly nice as well. There's a really nice simplistic reflection in that. So this shot here is incredibly low. The swimmers that have arrived aren't part of it, although lovely colourful hat there. No, what I've got is just a very low shot of this groin and its reflection in the pool here, and the tiniest part of the sand over there just kind of creeping in. Very difficult to tell on the camera screen whether or not I'm getting any of the crashing waves. I don't want them, but I'm being lazy in terms of not setting up the tripod really low down. And when I say really low down, I mean kind of inch or so off the sand down here. The crucial thing about shooting structures where you've got gaps like this is to ensure that everything has got its own space to breathe. And it's awkward here if you just pay attention to the posts there. As I move backwards and forwards, you'll see the relationship between them changes. So the gaps between these two tall ones either side can widen up, but the gap between this really short one and the one that's now pretty much directly in front of it kind of closes up, and we've got to get a happy medium, because if you have them kind of crisscrossing and overlapping, it just becomes more of a confusing scene. You've got to make sure you get that relationship between them absolutely right, or as right as you can get it. You've got to at least be able to see some space and some air and some light between them, and arguably the more you can get, the better. But there's also another element to it as well, in that we've got the relationship between the tops of them and also the horizon, but also the tops of them and also and the top of the groin there. Now, for most of them, that isn't a problem, but this really short one over here on this side of the groin in the water, it is a problem, because from the angle we're at now, it's almost level with the top of the main groin that runs into the sand. So you've got to get really low so that it breaks the level of that as well, and a lot of positioning is involved in something like that. Otherwise you'll just end up with a confusing shot. One of the videos I'm working on is about pre-visualization, which is effectively the art of looking at an image and having a good idea of what you're going to do with it, how it's going to end up looking. And I've got exactly that kind of thing down here now. Now, this camera's just not going to show it, but basically looking into the distance, it's very hazy. There's a lot of atmosphere. Wide angle doesn't look anything, but you start closing in on it with a big lens, you've got a really interesting shot, particularly as the sun's going down, because we've got the sun down in that direction. It's picking up the water droplets, it's coming off the water droplets in the air. It's producing a really interesting haze. She's kind of gone now. You just see it maybe down by the groin down there. But there's a lady with dogs, and she might actually be not making much of the scene, I'm not sure, but long lens, f8, f9, f10, something like that. I'm not capturing distance as crisp as it could be, because I'm focusing on the person, and there's so much haze and such. It's almost a monotone image, but I see it as being quite a retro kind of style to it. It will require a bit of post-processing. It might not be a great shot. I'm working with people just kind of walking around. It might be better without the people. I might shoot it again. I'm quite happy with it as a concept at the very least, and that's all we really need to work with here, is concept. All too often there's some kind of trade-off when you're trying to get a shot like this, and it's so awkward. I mentioned earlier about gaps and spaces, and it wasn't until I reviewed the shot that I was looking at, and indeed you'll see that I'd finally put it on a tripod, primarily because I wanted a long exposure. But if we turn over here, the issue that I've got is obviously I've got a horizon line that I need to bear in mind where things are. So if I kneel down, you'll see the relationship of, I'm pointing at the screen for some silly reason. Actually, that kind of works, doesn't it? The relationship of that with the horizon, as I duck down, you see, gets very close to it or is away from it. But at a certain point, we've also got this other horizon, so to speak, this line of the water here, and that's very much an issue. And I've been mindful of that, but I hadn't spotted the relationship between the line of the lower groins there and the edge of the water behind, and I only spotted that in reviewing, and I have not easily been able to find a position where I can really kind of get that gap big enough without destroying the breaking of the horizon with the big posts. And I think the big posts are more important, so you tell me. Oh, also the reason for a long exposure is because there's quite a lot of rippling going on here, and what that was doing was interrupting the reflection of these big posts, and I wasn't too keen on it. So with the long exposure, I'm able to capture all of that that going on there. You'll always get better images when you're not rushing. Take your time, consider them, look for the imperfections. That's the key thing, really, is look for the imperfections, but just move. As I said earlier, treat this as exercise for the mind and the body, and indeed I think for the soul. If you can get to a beach like this, all the better. But of course, lots of us live in cities, but the same kind of issues are in cities as well. You know, as you move around, then railings kind of get in the way of one another, things like that. It's the same kind of issues we've got with these groins. Just take your time, get out there and practice. It's the best advice anyone can give you, basically, is practice. But time as well, timings are important. You can see the sun is really beginning to dip there, and there's some lovely colours in the sky behind me, and just being out longer. Give yourself the opportunity of going out for a few hours. Check the weather, see whether it's going to clear up, see whether it's going to fog up. So all of these things, just enjoy it. I can't emphasize how much you need to enjoy it. I've got a shot here. I don't think it's terribly good. It's moved is what it's done. The idea is to try and get, again, this pool as a leading line running through the shot, and looking into the distance. It might not work. It's going to be the last shot I'm going to show you this evening. I'm going to put the shot up. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Whichever way, I hope that the video has given you something to think about. If it hasn't, then be sure to click the dislike button, and for double measure, click it twice. Otherwise, thumbs up, subscribe. join the channel, buy me a coffee. All of those things, any of those things, none of those things, whatever happens to be, check out these videos that are appearing over here, and here comes the shot.